It's Monday, the 3rd of December. We've got another break in the weather, so let's go up in the Mighty Luscombe and take another look at the campfire that devastated the town of Paradise, portions of Magalia, and the small town of Concow. But today, by request, let's go look at that portion of the fire where the fire started. So that means going up the main fork of the Feather River Canyon up to a tiny little town or village called Pulga, California, Spanish for flea. It's just a tiny little railroad stop. It's not even a stop, it's just a little tiny little town on the Feather River Railroad in the Feather River Canyon, very close to where this fire started. Investigators are continuing to investigate what caused this fire, and all eyes are focused on the PG&E transmission line near the Po Dam and the town of Pulga that first responders were talking about when they responded to this fire. The next day, I was able to get boots on the ground for the first time in the areas of Pulga and Concow. Spoke with the sheriff over there. Highway 70 is open today, Tuesday, the 4th of December, but he's saying they're dropping trees left and right, so there's delays and no telling how long that delay will take. They're also doing he called it a soft reopening of the Yankee Hill area and the road on up to Concow. So things are beginning to open up. Paradise right over there. So let's put these two reports together and see if we can help us all get a better understanding of what happened at the campfire. Starting here at 6,000 feet in the Mighty Luscombe, approaching the Feather River Canyon, it's very cold morning here in December, so I'm leaving the windows closed. You'll have to excuse a little bit of glare from the inside of the aircraft. The campfire, named after Camp Creek Road near where it started, burned over 153,000 acres. That's about 240 square miles, and we're looking to the west, about 18 miles long and about 12 miles wide were burned. About 18,000 total structures were lost, 85 fatalities, and the missing list as of to date is down to just 6 missing persons. So just to the west, we're looking at the Jarboe Gap area where Highway 70 comes down off of the ridge, descending into the Feather River Canyon upstream. Here's what it looks like on the ground. But first, let's start on the southern edge of the fire near Oroville Reservoir in the Big Bend area. Here on the edge of the campfire near Lake Oroville, you can see how the fire burned through, left the trees standing, but these trees are toast. They're dead. Dead and dying. Digger pines down there, they're completely shot. Manzanita, live oak. Now there's one digger pine that'll survive, and there's some green over there and a fire break over there, but most of this timber is gone. And of course it jumped all the way over that reservoir and continued to burn over there too. The original idea was to stop the fire on Highway 70, however it slopped over considerably, and only until there was a change in the favorable weather and some serious line building by ground crews and help from aerial assets was the fire finally able to be stopped in this area. Proceeding up the Feather River Canyon as Highway 70 descends down into the canyon, in the distance to the west you can see Concow Reservoir, and there's the town of Concow. The hope here was to stop the fire along the Feather River Canyon, but as you can see, there was considerable slop over the Feather River Canyon once the winds turned around from a northeasterly direction to a more conventional westerly direction. Once the fire jumped the Feather River, crews had to allow the fire to climb all the way up out of the canyon, as it's just entirely too unsafe to fight a fire mid-canyon and then mount an attack at the top of the canyon. And here you can see some slop over and spotting over the top of the canyon. Much of that containment was done with the help of aerial assets whose retardant has since washed away from the heavy rains. So here's what it looks like down in this section of the Feather River Canyon today. Looking west, we're on Highway 70, looking west down towards Chico. Pence Road on that ridge right over there, 191, and Paradise right up over that way. Fire continuing all the way up Highway 70. We'll head up towards the beginning or the source of the fire. So Highway 70 was going to be the fire line, but as you can see, the fire slopped over Highway 70. Scooters coming up next. Here's part of the cleanup, road delays, cleaning up debris. They got to get these trees down that are off the side of the highway that can fall and become a hazard to the highway, these dead and dying trees. So that's what's going on right now along Highway 70. So you can see here where they're clearing the edge of the highway there, making it a little safer. All these dead trees don't fall over into the roadway. Oh, those dead trees got to go right along there. Here's we're getting that tall timber out of the way and chipped up. So the first order of business in this massive cleanup operation is to secure the access routes into and out of the area by cleaning up all the dead and dying trees that can potentially fall into the roadways and the power lines. Thousands of crews from all over the United States and Canada have been mobilized for this effort. Here at Scooters Cafe on Highway 70, it survived, and the rumor is they're going to try and open tomorrow on Wednesday, the 5th of December. Scooter's house right down here survived as well, so hopefully we'll be open for business. But man, he's right in the middle of the fire here. It jumped way over on the other side of Highway 70 here. Crews are coming from all around the United States to cut out this dead timber, get it away from the road and get it away from the PG&E lines so we don't have more timber continuing to fall into the PG&E lines. Scooter's Place is a very popular weekend motorcycle destination hamburger joint on Highway 70 at Jarbo Gap. Now let's drop down into the Feather River Canyon. This was once a very beautiful section of the Feather River Canyon, now mostly all burned down from the campfire. This is very near the Jarbo Gap right up here, which is where they have a weather station that reported winds well over 50 miles an hour when this fire broke out. This Feather River Canyon acts like a Venturi whenever we get a northerly wind event, just funneling those winds downstream, down canyon, compressing those winds, heating them, and blasting them through this area. And those were the kind of conditions on the day this fire started. There's a closer look at the Caribou Palermo 115k volt, 115,000 volt transmission line that runs down the Feather River Canyon on the way to Palermo near Orville downstream. You can see where some of this canyon burned very thoroughly. Some of that may very well be old burn. And some of the canyon didn't burn nearly as much as the rest of it. You can see some of the green up there versus some of the black. The blacks were, of course, where it burned more completely with more vertical loading of timber. On the day the fire broke out, the winds were blowing down canyon, or this general direction. After the main fire windstorm subsided, the winds turned around to a more westerly direction and then worked their way back up the canyon, burning all that section clear on the other side as it slopped over the canyon. In that case, the winds were working upslope that way. That was several days after the main event here. This is the Caribou Palermo 115,000 volt transmission line that's in question right now, and here's some of the steel towers along that line. The source of this fire is further upstream towards Pulga. Take a look. The Caribou-Palermo transmission line is a classic example of California's aging infrastructure. Developed over 100 years ago to provide power for Northern California, a series of 10 power plants were developed in a staircase pattern down the Feather River Canyon. Though regularly inspected, these aging towers are the prime suspect that investigators are looking at right now, specifically for corrosion in the upper beam portion of the towers. Investigators are also closely looking at the steel ring that holds the stack of insulators that holds the cable up to the tower. If this ring fails, the line drops, creating a phase to ground or line to ground fault, in other words, a short circuit, sending a series of sparks to the ground before protection circuits can be engaged. Here's an example of what this looks like, even though this is an example of arcing and not a direct short. All it takes is these large sparks of molten metal before protective circuits can be engaged, landing on the dry vegetation in the extreme conditions of the day that this fire started to get this thing going. Even with proper vegetation management underneath these wires, there's enough dry, flashy fuel under the wires to spread this fire. One of the many helicopter operations going on right now as part of the recovery. Over 4,000 miles of power lines yet to be restrung before power can be completely restored. One of the many things that's got to happen before this area can begin to repopulate. Once a vehicle catches on fire, just like a structure, it's going to burn extremely hot. All the materials and plastics and fuel and everything else that makes up the composition of a car is going to burn at a very hot temperature. Takes a while to get them started, but once they go, they burn very hot. Here's the railroad down there by the river. Here you can get an idea of the extremely steep terrain here in the Feather River Canyon. This is the far side of the canyon where the fire finished burning, going generally that direction. You can see the slopes facing the correct direction, got burned fairly completely. Now behind me on the other side of Highway 70, there's your transmission line. And here's the solid granite I'm talking about, why it's so impractical. You can't bury these power lines. They have to run on power poles, steel towers. The Feather River Canyon is basically solid granite. Heading further up the canyon here to Flea Canyon, that's the big dark black area where this fire literally just erupted up out of the Feather River Canyon. This provided the chimney, as was discussed in the previous update, that gave this fire a tremendous amount of inertia, if you will, up out of the Feather River Canyon, racing across Concow on its way to Paradise. At the bottom of this canyon is the tiny little whistle stop of Pulga, and downstream from that, the Pulga Bridge. That's a Pulga Road and the Pulga Bridge. Closed. The Pulga Bridge is one of the more interesting bridges where the highway and the railroads crisscross the different sides of the canyon. They swap sides. Pulga Road right up there that's currently closed. And what's left of Pulga is down there just above the railroad tracks where all those vehicles are working. From the archives, I pulled up this adventure ride I took through Pulga to the High Lakes area back in 2012.
Well, here we are at Pulga, California. Not much, just a big old bridge. So if we stay on this Pulga Road, it'll work our way back up to the High Lakes area, 25, 26 miles, and quite a few thousand feet to climb, back up to 5,000, 6,000 feet. We're probably down around 1,500 or so, 1,600 feet right here. Another ear-popping climb to get up to the High Lakes area and Lots Lake. That'll be a good area to camp for the night. But it's still pretty early in the day, so let's see what happens. So there actually is a town of Pulga. Right here on the tracks. There was a town. Like a ghost town now.
The ghost town of Pulga was bought up recently by Bay Area resident Betsy Ann Crowley, and she was developing it as a bit of an artist's retreat where you could rent the entire town. Investigators are also looking at email correspondence between PG&E and the owner of the town of Pulga regarding transmission line and tower maintenance that needed to be accomplished right here near the town, just before the fire broke out. Leaving the town of Pulga here, the Pulga Road becomes the now infamous Camp Creek Road, the namesake for this fire, and heads 25 miles up into the beautiful High Lakes area, well above the Feather River Canyon.
Still going in the middle of the end of August. Nice little pool.
This archival footage reminds us all to get out here and enjoy this great state while it's still green.
Right off. Right into the feather. Wow.
Most of this high country was spared during this fire. Here where the fire originated directly below us, you can see that after the winds shifted to a more westerly direction, the fire crept up quite a ways up the Feather River Canyon, stopping near the town of Ragdump and sparing the high country. Now let's go back down to Highway 70 and look at the unusual way some of these trees burned. Getting rolling again out of Pulga. Now some of you ask, why do these trees burn from the inside? Well, because they're already rotten with beetle blight. There you can see all the beetle damage. Carpenter ants. These are already damaged and dying trees even before the fire got here. This is a classic example of one of the millions of dead and dying, damaged trees throughout the state of California that needed to be removed long before this fire, but have been long since held up by a lack of funding and environmentalist lawsuits. These damaged trees tend to rot from the inside out, creating a perfect chimney for the fire to burn through. Now let's put the Mighty Luscombe in hyperdrive mode and bend around to the southwest here and get a closer look at the backside of Flea Canyon and the tiny town of Concow. Here we're looking down the Feather River Canyon downstream back towards Oroville and Chico. This is the backside or top side of Flea Canyon where the fire burned very completely, and just missing the town of Ragdump and Howard Goodman, the mayor of Ragdump. And boy, does he have some stories to tell. The dirt road there is Concow Road. Coming out of the town of Concow, there's Concow Lake, and the town of Concow, Paradise off in the distance. And as you can probably tell, this area around Concow, where the light flashy fuel lies, has been burned in the past, in the recent past. In the last 18 years, more than a dozen fires have surrounded the towns of Paradise and Concow. These folks are no stranger to wildfires. In the past, these large fires were generally stopped along the steep canyons surrounding Paradise, perhaps giving folks a false sense of security. The large BTU Lightning Complex fire of 2008 just east of Paradise stripped that area of all the heavy timber and left behind dry, flashy fuels, grass, brush, and small timber. This provided the accelerant, coupled with the winds that day, to wipe out the town of Concow and jump the West Fork Feather River Canyon and take out the town of Paradise. Now let's go down to Concow on the ground, as the roads were just opened up the day I was there. Concow named after the Concow Maidu Indians that once inhabited this area.
This is the area of light flashy fuel that the fire burned through on its way through Concow. This is the road to Concow Lake, and this is an example of all the work that has to get done before they can repopulate. All these power lines got to get replaced. All these trees got to come down that are in the way of the power lines and in the way of the road. And then they got to clean up all the hazardous waste from all the burnt down homes. I'm here on the shore of Concow Lake, Concow, California. Right here by the shoreline looks pretty nice, but I can tell you, and from flying over this, everything for miles around is completely burned. They're letting folks in today briefly to sift through any remains or check on their property and see if there's any valuables they want to quickly get in and get out. But of course the curfew will be back in effect about sundown, and folks will have to get out of here.
As evacuation orders are being lifted, I believe the curfew is lifted as well.
This is Camelot Estates subdivision in Concow, California, a 251 parcel estate. Just spoke with the president of the homeowners association, who lost his home right up here. Every single one of the 251 units that were in Camelot Estates burned. Fast-moving fire right through Concow. Remember, Concow is just over the ridge from the Feather River. From the starting point of this fire, it came through here at a very high rate of speed before heading to Paradise. Here's an example where you see trees still standing, but they're pretty much all dead. Gonna have to go. Some vehicles have been bulldozed out of the way to make way, keep the road clear during the evacuation.
I spoke with the resident that lived here, lost his house, and about what's his plans for the future, and they had lucked out. They had recently purchased a second home in Chico, where they're still working, and so that's where they're going to relocate to. They're going to, at this point, they're not going to rebuild. Keep the property, but not rebuild at this point. But they'll continue to see how things shake out. He wanted to get up here today to sift through the rubble and see if his gun collection in his 2-hour safe was still there. And he found the safe and got it open, and the guns were gone. Well, they weren't gone, they were ruined, beyond ruined. So it'll be a long time before folks are allowed to repopulate, anywhere from a year to a year and a half, before they get things cleaned up enough to where folks can even begin to rebuild. There's still lots to learn about this devastating wildland fire and structure fire burn. We'll continue to follow events and see what investigators find out regarding what started this fire. We'll see you here.